morning everybody, good morning, it's JPR and welcome back to another video. So in typical fashionably late JPR style, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet has been out for nearly half a year now. And I think we can confidently say that this was one of Pokemon's most revolutionary generations yet. The transition from a completely linear story to one split into multiple paths and a fully open world brought about many changes to the traditional Pokemon formula. And today I'm going over each of these changes and ranking them from best to worst. The first change I'd like to discuss is the removal of two core options that have been around since Generation 1. The ability to turn off battle effects and change your battle style between shift and set. Now, technically these were taken out in Legends Arceus, not Scarlet and Violet, but Arceus was such a different game that I think mostly everyone expected these options to come back in a new generation game, but nope! For whatever reason, these options have completely bit the dust, and if my tone wasn't enough of an indication, I am deeming this a bad change. Yeah, I know, I usually start these videos off with the good, had to mix you up a little bit. Now truthfully, I can live with no battle animations. The animations are significantly faster overall, well, most of them I should say, Triple Dive is a move that exists, so I don't really mind that one being gone. I personally only turned animations off when shiny hunting, so it's not a huge loss for me, but the loss of battle styles does grind my gears a bit. To me, this is the definition of mildly infuriating. Like, sure, I can make myself play on set mode by just mashing the B button when the switch text comes up, but the option should just be there, you know? Even when Game Freak started enforcing the EXP share being on at all times in Gen 8, that was a change that I think many found to be annoying, but you can understand why it was done. They were trying to balance the EXP system around a new era of Pokemon games with less required trainer battles. I don't like it, but I can understand it. Removing set mode, I don't understand at all. I know it's such a minor thing to be irritated at, but at this point it's beginning to feel like every gen we're being forced to play the game a more specific way. And that's what I don't like. We should be adding options, not taking them away. D tier change. Anyway, next change, splitting the story into 3 paths. I quite liked this one. I feel like it makes everyone's experience with the game somewhat unique. Maybe you did everything in order, but one of your friends decided to grind the gyms first. Like, I did the Great Tusk Titan way earlier than I should have, and I was like 15 levels lower than I needed to be, and it may have taken me 6 attempts, but I beat it, dang it! Side tangent here, I am mostly on team this game needed level scaling to make full use of the open world because it still feels kinda linear, despite being designed in a non-linear fashion. But by not having level scaling, you do run into these situations where you can really challenge yourself with over-leveled boss fights. So to be honest, I don't know where I fall on this issue now. I might have to replay the games before I get a concrete opinion on this. What do you guys think? Are you for or against level scaling in future games? Maybe you guys can sway me one way or the other. Anywho, rambling aside, I did like the split storylines, especially how they all came together to form one cohesive plotline at the end. And you know, as someone who doesn't really play Pokemon for its stories, I like the idea that I can replay the game and only do the gyms, or only do the Titans. That sounds very appealing to me. A tier change. Our next change, however, man, I'm not sure whether to classify this as a negative change or just a neutral one. And that's all TMs being breakable again. I am also split here because personally I really liked the unbreaking TMs that we had from Gen 5 to Gen 7. You can argue it played a role in making the games easier. I personally saw it as more of a general convenience for the player. But I think Sword and Shield royally screwed up the TM system. All the good moves were the TRs that broke, and the unbreaking TMs were the mostly crappy moves that nobody cared about. On paper, that wasn't a bad idea. It made you work harder to get the better moves. But since obtaining TRs was tied to randomly spawning raid battles, or randomly spawning Watt traders in the wild area, it all just felt way too tedious. Here, I like how you can craft TMs through Pokemon materials. It doesn't feel nearly as RNG heavy as it did in Gen 8, but even that's not perfect, I would say. Like, I don't think every single Pokemon in the game needed to have its own material. I think they could have streamlined this system a bit by making materials for all 18 types instead. I just hate having so many materials to keep up with, and when I go to make the TM for Thunderbolt, the game tells me I need 16 more to Dene Farts. For a game that streamlines and simplifies so much, this feels needlessly complex. I get it's an open world game and they want to incentivize collecting and exploring, but I feel like they could have just made a massive list of like 300 unbreakable TMs and scattered them across the region to find. That to me would have been more fun and more convenient in the long run. So I guess strictly comparing it to Sword and Shield, it's a good change, but it's still far from the best TM system we could have had. C tier change for me. Up next, we have the max raid battles becoming Tera raid battles, and I'm choosing to talk about this instead of Dynamax versus Terrestrialization as a whole, because that's a topic so big that I want to make it its own video. So for the sake of this video, I'm just discussing the raid feature, and I think this is a strictly positive change. Are the Tera raids extremely buggy and frustrating at times? Yes, but so is the entire game. I guess that's not a good justification, but hold up, let me cook. Raids were one of the best new features that Gen 8 introduced, but I feel like they got really boring really fast. After doing them like a dozen times, everyone kinda knew the gist, and for the most part, if you weren't fighting a Pokemon with unique Gigantamax form, the raids weren't even worth doing outside of the rewards. With Tera raids, not only does it feel like there's more strategy and urgency to it with the timer, but the raids in general feel like they offer more value. Most of the time, you're getting a Pokemon with a unique Tera type, and that's way cooler than just getting a Pokemon with a slightly higher Dynamax level. And maybe it's just me, but it feels like there's generally more hype for these Tera raid events like Charizard, Greninja, and Decidueye than there ever was for the max raid events, and I think that's because A, you actually get to catch the Pokemon, I'm sure that helps, and B, the Pokemon you're getting is actually somewhat unique because of the Terrestrialization gimmick. So I'm fully in favor of the new raid system, it's so much better. They've already done some bug fixes, they've got a ways to go, but if they fully polish up this raid system, there's no competition in my mind. For now, it's a solid B tier change, but it could go higher in the future. The next one is a small one. The hail weather condition has been replaced with snow as part of Game Freak's never-ending campaign to make ice types actually good. Basically, snow raises the defense of all ice types by 50%, but no longer does chip damage to other types at the end of every turn. I guess this is a step in the right direction. My biggest gripe with it is, well, if someone uses flamethrower or flash cannon on you, then I guess snow is pretty useless. Is it better than hail? Yes, but literally anything would have been. And despite that, this is still probably the worst weather condition because it only grants one buff to ice types. Like TMs, I'm putting this one in C tier. Is it better than it was before? Yeah, but it's still not great. I wish they had gone with something a little bit different. On that note, let's discuss the changes, or rather the reversions, of the statuses Drowsy and Frostbite to Sleep and Frozen. I'll be straight up on this one. I don't like it. I think Legends Arceus had it perfect, I don't know why they went back on it. Drowsy was kinda like Paralysis with a few extra twists. Basically, instead of being asleep guaranteed for a couple turns, you had a 50% chance of moving normally, but you would take increased damage from physical moves. Additionally, when it's snowing, drowsing Pokemon have an even higher chance of not attacking. And drowsing Pokemon can cure themselves by using Spark, Wild Charge, or Volt Tackle. As for Frostbite, it was basically an equivalent of Burn, but it lowered special attack instead of physical attack. I thought this was really needed, seeing as how special attackers are already considerably more privileged than physical attackers are. Like Drowsy, the chance to inflict Frostbite on someone is raised in the snow, so another buff to a weather condition that drastically needs it. These are F tier changes. I don't care if this was the way it was for 25 years. They actually managed to balance two of the most unbalanced status conditions, and then said, actually, no, I think it was better the way it was before. It wasn't. Sleep is one of the most controlling shutdown options in the game, and Freeze is a complete crapshoot with no reliable way of inflicting it. I genuinely do not understand reverting these conditions. Bad move, Game Freak. Next change. Random encounters are completely gone. Technically, another Legends Arceus change carried over, or even a Let's Go change if you go back far enough, but it seems to now finally be permanent. I know some people may feel nostalgic for this, but I don't. The older I get, the more I hate having my time wasted. I only have 60 years left before I die. I need to make my days count. Looking for a specific Pokemon for entirely too long in the older games has quickly become one of my least favorite activities. I think this was something Pokemon needed to pull the trigger on for quite some time, and I'm glad they did. S tier change, baby, no complaints from me. Well, one complaint actually, a very large percentage of people aren't subscribed, and I want to hit 200k soon, so pretty pleased with the cherry on top. That would be nice. Also, I'm going to Pokemon Regionals in Charlotte this weekend, so if you see me walking around in my red Crocs and an Arcanine t-shirt, you should definitely come say hello to me. That would make me feel very good. Up next, the removal of battle facilities and BP, at least for now. That place from the Indigo Disc DLC looks suspiciously like a battle facility. This is the first time since Pokemon Gold and Silver that a battle facility hasn't been a part of the base game, and to be completely honest, I didn't even notice. Really, I'm fine with it. You can buy almost all the competitive items in stores, and there's absolutely no shortage of money in this region. If anything, money farming is way easier than BP farming, so this is a rare W for a removal in my opinion. B tier change, nothing crazy. Next we have Pokemon Camp getting replaced with picnics. This is another fine change. My biggest gripe with it is when the game is just like, you can have a picnic while riding on Koraidon. Like, okay, just take me off Koraidon automatically then. Why you gotta make me close the menu and hop off and reopen it? Just kinda dumb if you ask me. That aside, there's not too much to say. I think it's just the next evolution of the Pokemon and Me series. You got washing your Pokemon, interacting with them, stupid, dumb affection, making sandwiches instead of curry, which is cool because I honestly had no clue how curry even worked half the time. And probably most importantly, you can now breed during the picnic. Well, allow me to rephrase that. Your Pokemon can breed. Let's not do that other thing I mentioned. And you don't even have to move around. The Pokemon just kind of do their thing, so it's a nice AFK activity, if nothing else. Also, very obscure, but if you have a Pokemon holding a Mirror Herb, then you can transfer an egg move to another one of your Pokemon during picnics, which is a wonderfully convenient feature. So, since there's so many quality of life perks tied in here, I'd have to give it an A tier. It's nice. Next on our list is the Wycom getting replaced with the Poke Portal. And, well, it's still a Nintendo console, so it's still bad. It's no PSS, I'll put it like that. And we're still using link codes in 2023 instead of just selecting a friend. C tier. And lastly, the ability to give a Pokemon a concussion by smacking it in the back of the head and also throwing items in general has been mostly removed. This was probably the most disappointing change from Arceus to Scarlet and Violet, and I'm betting it has entirely to do with how little time separated those two releases. The only feature from that game that somewhat lives on is that you can throw your Pokeball at the backside of a Pokemon and catch it off guard, but it's just not the same, man. I want to hear that juicy crack on its skull. It's the sound of pure serotonin. And not being able to throw berries or smoke balls or anything of the sort is a disappointment because it just makes the overworld feel considerably more dull than it did in Arceus. They did keep a tiny portion of this feature, so I can't deem it an F tier change, but no better than D for sure. So to wrap up, I would say mostly good mechanic changes, at least when compared strictly to Sword and Shield. I think many of the features that game introduced have been heavily improved on here, but it does sting that a lot of the great Arceus features are all but gone here. Anyway, what was your favorite feature from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet? Let me know down below, but don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more videos like this one. I'll see you guys next time.